Africans in unity is strength. The African Continental Unity Party, Africa's first political party transcending boundaries. Watch their leaders speak on Demotivatorshow. It's the Motivator here. I know you're here to experience another inspirational podcast, and welcome to you. Welcome. Can you help us out? We need to secure 100,000 new subscribers to the channel. Have you subscribed? Have you shared copies of links to this video with your friends, your network, the wider community? Help us to secure 100,000 new subscribers to our YouTube channel. So what I'm going to start to do now, I'm going to start bringing in my guest, and we'll then initiate this interview, because this is going to be yet another one of these truly inspired occasions. The purpose of these interviews is to find common aim and common purpose through sharing of knowledge, okay? And in sharing that knowledge, we empower all. And through that empowerment process, we raise confidence, and our abilities to affect change in our lives is multiplied many times, okay? And here we have a young man. I've got to say that I've spoken to a number of people from across the continent, and they tell me their ages. There's no way I could believe that age, okay? There's no way. I know it's unfortunately, I live in a country where much of the food is poison, it is actually poison. Yeah. So I suspect you're experiencing good food, untainted food, I suspect. Anyway, before I begin, I just want you, please, just to introduce yourself. Just say your name, the organization, and the role you play in your organization. First of all, let's get the ball rolling. Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you to your viewers and your listeners. My name is Akwesi Owusu Kwatin. Akwesi Owusu Kwatin, and I am from the African Continental Unity Party, and I am the education lead, or I'm the leader of the education committee, putting some educational policies and philosophies together for the organization.
Wonderful. That's an extremely important position.
Yes, definitely.
I cannot understate its importance, because education, the political, social, scientific, or others, is the cornerstone of our civilizations. Okay.
Exactly.
And I'm marked when I study. Okay, the numbers of our people who simply do not study. And you and I know that the lack of study means that they are vulnerable to manipulation by others. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So definitely, maybe we'll be talking about some few things that we are putting in place to ensure that the African actually knows exactly who they are and what to do to achieve greatness.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you've really gone right into the nub of this, and remember who they are. But it's like us all, we need to be taught. History isn't just in a book. We've got to make it become alive. Huh? Is that right?
Yeah, we have to make it come alive. It should be like a conscious effort to actually put it in the minds of the people, because mostly in the Ghanaian curriculum, for example, and in other African curriculums, people do not learn about Africa until they are in the university. So what about if you don't get opportunity to attend university? Yeah. So there's a sense in which we have to bring down the studies about Africa at the pre-tertiary level, so that we consciously let them know who we are, our civilizations, our indigenous technologies that were truncated because of the coming of the Europeans. When we pick it up from there and connect it to our modern education, we know that, yes, we'll be creating some great enterprises for the young people, rather than they running away chasing other European and American countries to seek for greener pastures. They could create something for themselves here. So that's why it's very important. Education.
Very, very important. I cannot understate it, and we're going to come back to this in a moment. I see that we are being joined by Calabar. Let me just bring this other guest in now. And what I'm going to do, let's bring it to my right. Hopefully this works. Okay, I think we've got our next guest in. Now, Kabbalah, I think you're not quite centered on our screen. You're slightly off center. Oh, he's changed his background. Okay, you're not quite centered on our screen. Oh, that's better. Keep going. Perfect. You're now centered. First of all, good morning to you. Good morning to you, first of all. Can you hear us all right, first of all?
Yes. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you well. Excellent. Can I just ask you, before I begin, just to say your name, the organization that you're from, and of course, the role that you play in the organization. Your name, the organization, and the role you play. Go ahead.
Beautiful. So my name is Kabbalah. Mm-hmm. I am speaking to you currently from South Africa. Mm-hmm. I'm born in the colonial enclosure that we call the Democratic Republic of Congo. Mm-hmm. So I'm a member of the ACUP, the African Continental Unity Party, and I'm in charge of the global communication.
Wonderful. Now, that's another one of these incredibly important roles. The ability to communicate key messages to the people, is essential. And we might probe you how you communicate later on, but that's another fundamental tenet, because you can have great ideas, but if you're not able to communicate those ideas to the people, then those ideas are really just to yourselves and are meaningless. Okay, so well said. So what I'm going to do, if I may, is kind of just move us forward. You may well have seen some of the themes of questions I'm going to ask, but I just want to just get into this. And I'll leave it to you both to decide who will answer which questions. So my first question to you both. When and why was the African Continental Unity Party formed?
So the ACUP was formally introduced to the African on the 21st of November 2020. That's when it was initially introduced to the Africans on social media, of course, via Zoom meeting, because there were people in the UK, people in Germany, people in Africa. So we had a virtual meeting through which the ACP was introduced formally to the global African community, even though prior to that there were some activities that were taking place to set up the whole agenda to try to eventually design or pre-design what will be the vision and the mission of ACP. And of course, after the launching with the improvement and the inputs from other members, we're able to then clearly structure the vision and the mission, which has been eventually guiding the ACP to this day. So the why of the ACP is literally in relation to the desire that we have in Africa today, and in every African community, whether in the diaspora or on the continent, we have one single desire, and that desire can be expressed through our need for liberation.
Yes.
We know that for many years now, for many centuries actually, African family has suffered under the yoke or the bondage of Western imperialism, and today we are kind of shifting towards the Eastern imperialism. So which means our most important need has been the need for liberation. Though we express that liberation in form of development, economic, progress, businesses, all these things. But the bottom line is that Africa must be liberated so that Africa can decide for its own what is the destiny. Africa can be in the driving seat of its own reality, and so forth and so on. So that has been the why for the ACP, and this is not something new. It's something that Kwame Nkrumah fought for, something that Marcus Garvey tried to accomplish through the unity. For Kwame Nkrumah, for Marcus Garvey, for all the prominent Pan-Africanists, the idea or the key to achieve the liberation and emancipation of Africa was through unity. And we still believe to this day that unity is the key that will allow us as African people, globally speaking, to bring together our efforts, our means, our resources to create then the Africa that we need. Because for Africa that we need to be created, we need resources, we need efforts, we need commitment, we need work. And in doing that in numbers, we are able to
Yes.
achieve better result than what we can do individually. So that is briefly, very briefly, the
Yeah.
why ACUP was eventually created. Of course,
Mhm.
with a bit of difference based on our analysis of the past, because we had to understand what has led to probably not a successful result of the past movements, such as what Kwame Nkrumah was doing, Marcus Garvey, Thomas Sankara, and all others. And what we realize is that the Western imperialism or white supremacy globally relied on eliminating leaders, key leaders in Africa, to put an end to any movement for the African liberation and emancipation. And based on that analysis, what we decided to do was that we don't want to put a figurehead on the ACP, like a
Mhm.
charismatic leader to the ACP. What we put as a leader is the vision that we have. Everyone
Yes.
needs to understand what the vision is, just as everyone understands their need to wake up in the morning, to go to work, to do the work, to get the money, and to feed themselves, to accomplish whatever dream they have. We
Mhm.
all, with our dream of liberation and emancipation, we need to understand. So the vision that we have that leads us to that freedom is actually the leader, the supreme leader that guides our efforts every day. And all of us, we just fulfilling some functions that can be fulfilled by anybody, like communication, mobilization, fundraising, so forth, so on. So let me stop here. I'm keen to get more questions and elaborate more on
Yes.
that. Thank you very much.
No, that was well said, and that it is clear. Of course, um, I say this regularly, and the audience will be familiar with this proverb. I think is always appropriate at this stage, and it's a very useful African proverb, which really comes out of the wisdom of our ancestors that I wish to quote now. And many of you will recognize this proverb, which I'm now about to put on the screen, which I think really emphasizes what this wonderful young man has just said. And I'm put it on the screen. As you can see, it's on the screen now. This is the Ethiopianism to Pan-Africanism, the African proverb. If we stand tall, it's because we stand on the shoulders of many ancestors. This proverb teaches us the importance of studying the past to derive lessons from it for the purpose of shaping our future. It reminds us that we are who we are because of those who've come before us. And this young man is a wonderful exemplar of what is now, but he's learning and learned from the past. And the organization therefore structured in response to past experiences. Well said, well said. And I like the idea. You no longer have a charismatic leader, as it were, with a cross on his head. Yep. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. This is our reality. Yeah. No matter what these
Yeah.
so-called civilized countries suggest to you, this is our reality. What I want to do in this case then is kind of just probe you a little bit more on the key mission statements of the organization. And you may have seen, if you were watching the intro video, where I alluded to some of the mission statements, the core values and objectives that is set out for this organization. Okay. And I'm going to ask you to talk to it. But before getting there, I'll put it on the screen to help you and the audience, because there are some audience who are purely audio and others who are watching this via the screen. But I want to ensure that there's complete understanding, because you and I are able to speak very intellectually about these matters. Well, we want to make sure that the masses understand us. And I find that if I make it really easy for them, and for me, he says, we place it on the screen, then it's obvious, it's clear, it's unambiguous. Okay. So what I want to do first of all is ask you to speak to your mission statements. Okay, and the mission statement is, in fact, it's on your website, I believe. It's on the website, and I'm just going to ask you to talk to your mission statement so it's clear in the minds of all of those who are listening, whether it be socialistic in their thinking or purely capitalistic, but to understand the mission statement. And in fact, what I'll do, I'll put that on the screen as well now. Let's get it started. There we go. Not sure if you can see that all right. Okay. All righty. Okay. So, first of all, promoting African unity. And it says here, the primary aim of the ACUP is to promote the unity of African countries based on the belief that African nations should work together to achieve common political, social, and economic goals. What do you mean by that?
Is that me?
Yes.
Working also.
I'm going to leave you both to decide who wishes to answer which question. So I see the young man is watching to you, is looking to you. You see, so there you are.
Yeah.
King also, you want to go with that? Or you want me to take it?
Yeah. I want you to take that one. Take that one for it.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Beautiful. No, great. So the point about unity is by the fact that we realize that we are living at a period where the global white supremacy that we can call today imperialism or neocolonialism has become an international agenda or a global agenda. It means that we are not fighting against one particular sector of the world called neocolonialism or one country such as France or England. We are fighting against the global, neocolonialism, which has become a global agenda, whereby the Western countries or so-called superpower countries have come together to globalize the agenda of neocolonialism. And in that, with that understanding, we believe that it only makes sense for us to also globalize our effort and strategies against the neocolonialism or imperialism. In other words, what we're trying to say is that imperialism is no longer a matter concerning only Angola as a country, or concerning Zambia alone as a country, or concerning Congo or South Africa as a country, even though we believe individually that we are able to tackle the imperial forces that keep us under developed and we are able to win over them is because we don't realize that these forces have become global, have
Yes.
become forces of global magnitude. And for us to tackle them, we need to unite our strategies, our efforts to make our counter imperialism forces, make it also global forces. If possible, to even team up with the rest of the world who are suffering under imperialism so that we can win. Like, because the fight for liberation, as I said from the beginning, has
Yes.
two stages, especially when it comes to Africa. The first stage is to fight against, and the second stage is to fight for. So when
Absolutely.
we do the first stage, which is about fighting against, which is means we're fighting against imperialism, neocolonialism, because there's no way we can liberate ourselves if we are not firstly able to overcome the forces that are keeping us in a state of bondage for us to be liberated. So that first stage of fighting against imperialism, we need to definitely unite first and foremost as African people on the continent and abroad. Therefore, there's no agenda for Angola, there's no agenda for Ghana, there's only agenda for African family worldwide. That means we need to unite our efforts and fight against imperialism. And if other countries of Latin America, for example, like Cuba, like Venezuela, who are also suffering against imperialism, want to join because the aim here is to make our effort, our agenda, a global agenda of fighting against imperialism. Now, when the forces of imperialism are weakened, there's the second stage for us as African people, which is now to fight for rebuilding Africa, for
That's right.
reconstructing Africa the way that we want, and that is actually what will lead us to the stage of power that will eventually bring us into a state of liberation and emancipation as African people. But what we emphasize, that fight for African liberation, that is our only our unique task and job. We cannot count on China, Russia to assist
That's
us
right.
to rebuild Africa. We can team up with Russians to fight against imperialism, but when it comes to rebuilding Africa, that has to be a solely
Our
responsibility of African
responsibility.
people to do
Well
that.
said.
So, in nutshell, what I wanted to say, the unity that we are emphasizing is because we are fighting against global powers, global forces, and we cannot do that alone. So, in other words, there's no more problem for Angola. There's no problem for Zambia. There's a problem for Africa and all African
Absolutely.
people. And because there's no problem for these individual countries, I can also say that there's no solution for individual countries. Even though we
Indeed.
think we have our solution, as South African, we have our solution. As Zambian, there's no unique solution or individual solution. There's only collective solution for all African people, and that solution is to aim for liberation and total emancipation of Africa. So
Prominent 20th century Pan-Africanist. His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. Africa must unite. We have to do so that we do not again fall victims to colonialisms.
that's why
Well
we
said, well
emphasize
said.
this
Yes.
first.
Not a problem. Well said. Well said. Well said. And there's some terminology you're using there. I want to make sure it's understood by the masses. The term imperialism. What do you mean by that word imperialism? Just so that the average person on the street will understand that term. It's not a common parlance, but I understand what you mean. But I'm going to invite you to clarify its meaning. What do you mean by imperialism? Go ahead.
Good, good. So to make it more simple and understandable for everyone, imperialism is the desire of Western countries, particularly at this moment, such as the United States of America, the British, France, all the G7 countries mostly, to have their hand on African resources,
That's right.
African future and African reality, and
That's right.
define and design what Africa needs to become tomorrow. Just as they did it at the Berlin Conference 1884, 1885, which
Yes.
led into the reality in which we are living today, right? Where
Yes.
we are divided, weakened, and exploited in and out. That is actually the domain of imperialism. So it means they have to keep the situation as it is so that the resources of Africa can continue to build the future of European children while African children are crossing the Mediterranean water
Starving.
to join
Yeah.
the paradise over there.
Yes, that's right. Well said and beautifully illuminated. Thank you for that clarification. So it is understood by the audience. Okay. And often, I know I've heard this often from those who live in Britain, for example, that we live in a wonderful, peaceful, prosperous nation. But if you walk through London, all you can see are buildings built on the blood and sweat of your ancestors, our ancestors. Those big buildings are from the money and the blood and the terror, the brutality that was experienced by our ancestors. This is quite remarkable. All I can see is blood, yeah, pain and horror. That's all I can see. But it's well illuminated. Thank you. Africans in unity is strength. Watch part 2. In unity is strength. count circumstances, and thinking about how to improve one's circumstance. And in doing so, and engaging those who are close to you in that manner, you transform your lives. Yeah? You transform your lives. Working together is the essential ingredient here, regardless of your ethnic or tribal affiliation, regardless of your socio-economic position, regardless of your religious affiliation. Coming together in common aim and common purpose is an essential tenet if we're to find strength. Yeah? In unity is strength. Yeah. That's the way forward.